Hi, everybody. I'm John Oates, and you are watching Noise 11.
And we welcome to noise11.com. John Oates, good to have you on this side of the planet.
Thanks to be on the south side of the planet.
Yeah, look, the burning question, though, is who is babysitting your emus?
You know about the emus, huh? Luckily, we have a gal who takes care of our place when we're gone. We have llamas and alpacas and emus, and my wife is she's a farm girl from Illinois, and she loves to rescue animals in need. And all this mob of emus, as I've learned to describe them, they were about to go to the rendering factory. Mm-hmm. And so she said, we're going to take them all. And I'm like, oh, my Lord. I thought we were getting one or two, and we got like 13. So, no, they do great. And I'm so surprised they do so well in the cold, high altitude of Colorado. But they do great. I mean, they just are so strong. I mean, they just don't need anything.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
Yeah, well, John's actually an expert in Australian wild animals. We'll talk about another one later on, Ivor Davies. But, we'll get to that one.
Yes, native Australian creature.
Yeah. There's quite a lot of activity in the John Oates, musical world, particularly at the moment. The John Oates Band, which is about to release a new record. Yes,
a worldwide release of something we're calling the Bluesville Sessions, which is actually I spent, just to give you some background on it, I spent this entire past year developing and putting together a band and doing 65 shows. And in the course of doing that, the band just came together in such a cool way. Great guys playing really, really well together. And I wanted to capture it somehow because we were getting such good reaction when we played live. So we went into the Sirius XM radio studios in Washington, D.C. During one of our tour stopovers. And we just went in there at 11 o'clock in the morning and said, let's go. And we literally played our set from beginning to end, completely live, no fixes, no nothing. And that's the album that's coming out. And it's just a great representation of all the hard work and really good vibes that this band has put together over the year.
Lots of standards on there?
Well, it's really what it does is it's a way for me to honor and all the music that made me who I am as a musician as a kid. Because I was into all sorts of things before I met Daryl. I mean, it was like, folk music, folk blues, the Delta blues, early rock, early R&B. So I kind of tried to have a cross-section of the seminal influences that really made me want to play the guitar, want to sing, that kind of thing. And it's Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Curtis Mayfield, Mississippi John Hurt, Doc Watson, on and on and on. So that's really what the album's about, and there's a few originals in there as well.
Yeah, and a Hall Oates song.
A couple Hall Oates tunes as well.
Yeah,
we sprinkled them in, but done in a completely different way, of course.
Yeah, so you do Maneater on that album too.
Yeah, we do kind of a rockabilly, I guess you'd call it kind of a rockabilly version of it.
Blues is generally associated with Mississippi, and I guess Hall Oates were associated with Philadelphia.
Yeah. However,
tell me about that crossover.
Well, it's interesting. Of course, Daryl and I are so connected to Philadelphia. And interestingly enough, as a sidebar, that Daryl and I have never recorded in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. Not one record other than our original records with our individual bands back in the 60s. So, yes, we were from Philadelphia, but Philadelphia, in addition to its amazing urban R&B tradition, has an incredible folk tradition. The Philadelphia Folk Festival this year celebrated its 50th anniversary. So growing up there and being there in the 60s when the folk revival was happening, I was in the right place at the right time. A very good friend of mine was the manager and rediscovered a lot of the great people like Mississippi John Hurt, Son House, Robert Pete Williams, and he would bring them to Philadelphia so they could play the little venues, the folk venues, and also play the Philadelphia Folk Festival. And I got a chance to sit in the living room with these guys, watch them, play with them, and it was an amazing experience for me. And that's really the kind of the roots of my personal influences that go back to that era. So it's kind of this blending of the urban R&B thing with that folk and traditional American thing that kind of what I really do.
Was the Masters your first band?
I joined that band when I was in 8th grade, and we stayed together through high school, and then in 12th grade we made a record, a single, and that's what got my foot in the door in the professional music scene in Philadelphia.
Yeah. When was the last time you got together with those guys?
Oh, I don't see them very often. I don't even know where they are.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
The early albums for Hall & Oates, I think around '72 was the first one when they came out. But the first lot didn't do that well. Was it a concern for you? By the time you got to the third record and they still weren't selling.
If it was today, there would be no such thing as Hall & Oates, because in the atmosphere and the environment of today's music business, without a hit, you're gone. Fortunately for us, we came up in an era where record companies and people believed in developing artists and developing their careers if they saw the potential. And obviously people saw potential in us, and they allowed us to make the creative mistakes that allowed us to evolve into what we became. And I feel really bad for a lot of young musicians today, because I think there's so much great talent out there who, because of that new environment of really no tolerance for failure, will never get the opportunity to perhaps evolve and develop the way they could. Creative people need to screw up. It's part of the deal. You screw up and you learn from hopefully you learn from your mistakes, and then you move forward and create something hopefully original, and that's what we were able to do, but only because we were at the right place in the right time.
On this tour, you're doing Las Vegas Turnaround.
Yeah, we throw it in.
Yeah,
I have a great affinity for the Abandoned Luncheonette album. For me, I think it's the best album we ever made. That, along the Red Legend Voices, are my three favorite albums. But I just think there's something about the Abandoned Luncheonette album that captures the spirit of what Daryl and I were when we really first bonded, in a way, on every level. And so even in my solo shows, I tend to do a lot of Abandoned Luncheonette songs. I bring out Lady Rain, and I do some other things like that. So it's just one of those records that has stood the test of time, I think.
What about Sarah Smile? I guess that was the breakthrough song, wasn't it?
If you're talking about commerciality and singles, yes. It broke through, and it's really funny about that song too. I believe we released 2 or 3 singles from that Silver album, 2. And neither of them did very well. I mean, they did okay. They went into the top 40, I believe. And the record company was kind of ready to move forward. They were, the word was out to, make another album, make another, record. And that's what we were already thinking about. We happened to be on tour in England, and we got a call from our management and the record company saying that a small R&B station in Toledo, Ohio, was spinning Sarah Smile as an album cut, and people were calling the station saying, what a great song, and they kind of said, you know what, let's take a shot with this. They thought, well, do we really need to release a third single? And thank God they did, because it of course became a big hit. And then She's Gone was re-released on the heels of that success, and finally went up into the top of the charts as well.
I guess one of the riskier things that you did was recording with Robert Fripp.
I personally didn't. That was Daryl. Daryl.
That was on his Sacred Songs.
Yeah. No, Daryl has a very adventurous side musically, and he wanted to explore it and take things out and do something completely different from what we were doing together, as well he should, because that's what solo projects are all about. They the last thing a solo project should be is a redo of Hall & Oates. I think and that's what he did with that Robert Fripp album. He created a very progressive rock, adventurous, musically adventurous identity for himself with that.
And that's why you keep your solo albums very separate in sound as well.
Absolutely, because there's no point. What we do together, I think, is a classic thing, and we're very proud of what we do together, and we love it. But at the same time, it is what it is. There's no point in doing it again. There
was a lot of cross-pollination going on with different artists. Paul Young had the hit with Every Time You Go Away. Yet you guys had the hit with Family Man, which is Mike Oldfield's song.
Right. That was an oddball song. I mean, that was one of those. That was just a happy accident. What we like to call happy accidents in the studio. We were recording, I believe it's H2O that's on. We were recording the album and cutting tracks basically. And one of our road guys, who was our keyboard tech, he literally brought the song in. He said, I heard this song, Mike Oldfield. He goes, I think you guys could really do it. And we listened to it and went, what a cool song. And we just cut it. So very rare that we would, do someone else's song, because we haven't done that very often in our career. But that was a success.
How did you get to meet Ivor Davies?
I met him in the hotel bar of the Mayflower Hotel in New York City, totally by accident. Now I can't remember, it's been so long, I can't remember if it was prearranged or if we just literally happened to meet by accident. But regardless, we sat down and we had a drink and we talked, and I was a fan of Ice House. I love their music. I thought Great Southern Man was an amazing song. I think he invited me to come to Sydney and write. I think he was preparing a new album, and he said, "Hey, you want to write a song?" Or I don't know who made the suggestion first, but I'm glad he did. And down to Sydney I went and spent a week with him, and luckily we came out with one gem.
Electric Blue is the song.
Electric Blue, yeah.
Is that the only song you wrote together?
No, we wrote about 2 or 3. None of them were very good, honestly. I don't think we were. I personally was a little discouraged. I felt like I had come all the way to Sydney, and he had put a lot of faith in me to come down and deliver in a sense, and I didn't think I was delivering very well, and I was a little bit bummed, and more than a little bit bummed. And then Electric Blue, the idea for it popped into my head, and then he liked it, and it just took on a life of its own. And quite frankly, he did the majority of the work on that song. I came up with the idea for the hook and the chorus, and we had that going, and we really knew it was something special. And then I left because I had a limited time, and then he did a lot of the work to finish the song, the large majority of the finishing of the verses and stuff like that.
Tell me about the Aspen Songwriters Festival and what you do and your work in that.
Well, the Aspen Songwriters Festival is really a labor of love for me. It's a nonprofit organization to mentor and to foster the art and craft of songwriting. We're developing an endowment now. We have some investors and people, a board of directors that we've just created, and we're also working with Berklee College of Music in Boston to create scholarships for their songwriting department. We'll have some of the Berklee students coming out and performing at this year's festival. But it actually started with I was doing some in the round performances in Nashville, and I loved doing it so much, and I thought it was something that people in Aspen, Colorado had never seen. And also we have a particularly amazing Victorian theater called the Wheeler Opera House that's just perfect for acoustic music. And I just thought the fit was just perfect. And so I invited Patty Griffin and a guy named Scott Miller and myself, and I said, let's just do it in the round, very casual. And Patty, was so gracious to come out and do it and take a chance. And that's really what kick-started the whole thing. We did that show and 2 other shows, and people in town loved it. And actually a city councilman made a suggestion to the city of Aspen saying, why don't we develop Oates' idea into a festival, expand it, in other words. And that's what we did. So we're going into our 3rd year. We've had unbelievable artists. We have Keb Mo and Alan Toussaint, and we've even had Jeff Barry, and we had Bird and Bee, Sean Colvin, the list goes on. Kenny Loggins this year. It's just great. And it's a chance for seasoned professional songwriters to get together with new songwriters, and we try to showcase the new songwriters along with the more well-known ones.
I was going to ask you about Bird and Bee. What did you think of the album?
I thought it was, Greg Kirsten is an amazing producer and piano player, and Onara George is a fantastic singer. I think what was unique and what appealed to me the most about that album was that they were very faithful to the original songs in a way, but yet Onara, the fact that a female was singing them, made them really different to me. It seemed like the perspective was shifted, and I really liked that. I thought that was really cool.
And final note, sad morning this morning hearing about the death of Don Cornelius.
I know, I just got that email from a friend of mine. I just wrote a small obituary eulogy, but we played Soul Train.
Yeah, tell us about your time on the show.
Well, Daryl and I have always been accepted in the R&B community. Our first album, our first record, singles, way back with the Masters and the Temptones, were played on WHAT and WDAS, the R&B stations in Philadelphia. For us, being part of the R&B community has been really the bedrock of a lot of our success over the years. In the early '70s, one of Daryl and my goals were to get on what was called white underground FM radio. I mean, we literally couldn't get on those stations. So being accepted in the R&B community to us is normal and cool. And when we were invited on the show, we had some big crossover hits. And I think it was really cool because I think what it did was it cemented our the fact that we I think broke a lot of ground in crossover music. We were one of the first white artists to be played on black stations. I think paved the way in a lot of ways for Prince and Michael Jackson to cross over in a lot of ways. Of course, Michael was already crossed over from the beginning, but I just think it opened the door a lot to the perceptions of segregation in radio.
Well, John Oates, great to have you here.
Thanks, man.
At Noise 11.